Obviously, I want to spend some time talking about him, but I guess part of this is you are probably one of the more outspoken people who I believe separates what I'll call the promotion and marketing and kind of the outward message from the science that's being done there. And just so people understand, I think your position is big believer in the science and kind of the ultimate visions of those companies, but the way it's being executed is the best way to describe it might be there's better ways to do it. Is that fair?
That's diplomatic. I mean, I've been blunter online. So, let's list the things, sort of in intellectual honesty, the things that I would admire. I think the pursuit of going to another planet, or to the moon again, is a brilliant thing. What we will discover and learn as the sort of entropic exhaust from that will be useful for society will be huge. It gives people both a sense of purpose and meaning, and society generally needs that. So that's a virtue. The talent that has flooded into places like SpaceX and Tesla and Boring and others are brilliant engineers, and they're motivated by somebody who speaks to them, as a good leader of this is a future and I want to take you there. And so I think all of those are very virtuous things. I think the design is brilliant. I think the renderings, I think there's an artistic, aesthetic ethos to all the companies that are quite brilliant. And a lot of people say, well, you're really critical about the stock or the valuation. And I'm actually not so critical about stock. I mean, people can, it's a free market. You can own something, you make money or lose it if it goes up or down. And if you think it's fairly valued or undervalued. My main criticism is what I would call the mendacity, the relationship with the truth. This is something that, people can't understand. They say, why do you hate Elon? I don't hate Elon. It's not a personal thing. It's a feeling that there's a knowing manipulation of the masses in the same way that I would look at a Sunday preacher. And there are some people that would look at a Joel Osteen or a Creflo Dollar or Jim Baker back in the day and say, this guy's amazing. And I'd be sitting there being like, are you serious? Like, you don't see this guy is literally trying to fleece you for your money and bullshitting you? And so there's elements of that where I understand why it has to be done. The show has to go on, and the showman must do sort of like the Simpsons monorail man to get people to part with their money. But I also truly believe, if you ran the counterfactual, that he would have absolutely been able to raise tens of billions of dollars necessary in a loss-making enterprise and do it honestly by saying, we are going to do some of the most ambitious thing that man's have ever seen, and we are going to lose money for a really long time. And if you don't want to be part of that journey, you should not invest. But if you do, I promise it's going to be a wild ride. People would part with their cash, they'd be part of it. And maybe some people have already rationalized that that's what it is. But when you're saying like we're going to be cash flow positive and we're profitable and you're playing with the numbers and you're trying to induce, certain institutional investors and retirement money, when the stock's going up and everybody's fine, it's great. But, when things get revealed, and it may take a long time for that to happen, it's, I think, going to be tragic.
Yeah, and I guess part of this is like there's a separation almost from setting the vision and the ambition on the science and engineering side and really having to motivate people, right, to want to work on something that's really hard and it almost seems impossible when you talk about, hey, I want to go launch a rocket and re-land it, or I want to build this, super sexy sports car on the electric vehicle side. That can actually be a huge benefit in science and engineering. When you then turn to financials, it's almost like the gift on one side is the curse on the other to some degree.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I think that there are other models of people who, do amazing things that are worth celebrating. I mean, I truly believe that Bezos, and he's not without his moral transgressions and labor mispractices, and there's lots to critique. Nobody is infallible, but I truly think that his kind of thinking in building an enterprise, it goes beyond just commerce and pricing. It goes deep into technology. I mean, he's somebody that says, I can't predict 5 years out what technology is going to matter, but I can predict with very high certainty people are going to want more convenience, they're going to want more choice, they're going to want their stuff faster, and they're going to want lower prices. And so all the technology investments that he makes, from robots and automation to inevitably self-driving cars for 24-hour delivery, are just very systematic and thoughtful, and I find frankly inspiring. Now, of course, he's going to space also, but he's funding it out of his own pocket from profits and cash flow that have been generated from a business that has never raised equity capital, since their IPO in the case of Amazon. So I admire that much more. because I feel like it's rooted in sort of a grounded ethics and execution that is really rare.
Yeah, and so one of the questions somebody sent me that I thought was fantastic was, if you took over as CEO of Tesla, what would you do differently?
I would hire Elon, but I would put a ring around him of controls. One of the things that's interesting is you can name a lot of great people at Microsoft. You can name a lot of great people at Amazon. You can name a lot of great people at Apple. It's very difficult for you to name a lot of people at Tesla. And the turnover has been, pretty insane and well documented. But I think Tesla needs Elon to be able to be a visionary. And I wrote this letter, which he sort of, semi-famously farted at right on Twitter, which was, were I on your board, this is what I would do. And it was mostly give him the permission to fail, meaning let him restructure, get rid of the debt, raise the capital that he needs, take a breath, be honest. And I think that would just be a wonderful reset. And I said, in that letter, then I would be table poundingly long Tesla. It was such a weird thing to say. So I think it's just really restore integrity and honesty and stop the magician show. It's just not necessary.
Yeah, it's a super nuanced view. And the reason why I think it's so interesting to kind of hear you talk through this is it's not like you haven't invested and spent a lot of time with people who are doing other really ambitious things in science and engineering, right? So,
look, every one of our entrepreneurs, right, is basically telling us a story when they come in, right? I mean, they're telling us something that doesn't yet exist. And then we have to hold them to task and accountable. How much capital is going to accomplish what in what period of time? And then we put more money in. And the ambitions of what some of these guys are doing is just, insane, right? I mean, we have people that are launching rockets. We have satellites up in space. We've got autonomous systems that are out at rogue 100-foot waves in the ocean. I mean, people are doing crazy stuff, but most importantly, they're doing it honestly. And the day that they lie to us about something to try to induce us to part with our cash is the day that they're dead to us. And so I just think that the quality of the investor, companies get, I think Buffett famously said it, that companies get the shareholders they deserve. And when you have a largely retail investor base over time, I think it says something about the quality of your company.
So I want to switch gears for another possibly showman in another industry, which is Ray Dalio, and kind of the thought process there, where it's less about science and engineering, and it's much more kind of the let me impart my knowledge, and I've got this great financial returns, and we've kind of seen some similarities, both that ended up being fraudulent and some that actually ended up being perfectly fine. Kind of how do you think through evaluating a situation like that, where there's tons of rumors, but nothing that's necessarily concrete data or proven, and it's unlikely that anyone will ever see the actual return data or anything like that until it either is an issue or it isn't, right? It's kind of like we're all guessing until there's some big event and it's either revealed that it's what it says it is or it's not.
Right. Well, look, the positive thing here again is that, I think there's 1,500 plus brilliant people who work there producing research. And I think that they're all extremely highly pedigreed, really smart people. I think they understand everything that they're writing about, whether it's global macro currencies or relationships between fixed income and a variety of different asset classes, portfolio construction, risk. I think they understand all of that and they publish it brilliantly. I think the vast majority of them, if close to all of them, have never seen a P&L and are involved in anything in actual execution of trades. My basic view is it has been a levered long bond scheme that has benefited from a generational decline of interest rates. And I think the cult of personality and a little bit of red velvet rope and high minimums created this. And so I think that you have sort of a McKinsey-like front end and a very questionable back end. And, people, again, are free to invest. And if they get great returns, then, more power to them. And people are free to raise eyebrows and questions. Jim Grant came very close, a year and a half or so ago. He ended up with a foot fault, stepping over the line on a few things, and they went after him pretty hard. My view generally is when somebody is criticizing you, being open kimono or just, putting up the numbers, generally shuts up the critics. And that's true of Elon. It might be true of Ray. I don't know. But when you attack critics, it's generally a red flag,